Now, former CEO of the Public Procurement Authority, PPA, AJ, will not be able to hold public office for the next 10 years. A report issued by the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, SRAJ, reveals that the embattled government appointee put himself in a position where his personal interest conflicted with the performance of his public functions as CEO and as a member of the board of PPA. SRAJ has therefore directed Mr. AJ to refund to the state an amount of 5.6 million cedis within the next 6 months. The findings were made by SRAJ following a petition submitted by the Ghana Integrity Initiative to the Commission on 4th of October 2019 after the Joy News expose contract for sale. Johnny's Kweku Asante joins us with excerpts, first of all, with the excerpts of the report containing a statement released by the Ghana Integrity Initiative, and we'll also be hearing from the initiative shortly. But let me bring in Kweku. Kweku, first of all, we are learning that the Ghana Integrity Initiative received this report on the 16th of February 2022. First of all, tell us, what does it say about the issues of conflict of interest?
So there are a number of issues that have been raised, just like you said, according to this report from SRAJ and also the Ghana Center for Democratic Development, who have all been raising issues, particularly on this. The report states that on 2 occasions, Mr. ABAJ used his office as CEO of PPA to improperly alter the decision of the board of PPA in favor of TDL, a company which he has personal interest in. And so SRAJ established that Mr. ABAJ and Professor Douglas Boatin, who was chairman of the PPA, both failed to declare their assets and liabilities as required by Chapter 24 of the 1992 Constitution. So this SRAJ report, the findings that have been made, are a confirmation of what the public have known since Manasseh Azuawene aired this documentary about the PPA boss and his activity of selling contracts that come before him to companies that he had himself created. But much of the report actually also dwelled on the unexplained wealth. So there were more than 90 million cedis or in the account of the PPA boss. The SRAJ tried to get him to explain what exactly it was or what exactly he did to be able to come by that amount of money.
Right.
But he was only able to explain 86 million cedis. And so that is what, like you just said, SRAJ has asked him to refund the remainder of the amount that he was unable to explain under the various rules that has to deal with unexplained wealth. And so Mr. ABAJ will be refunding 5.697 million Ghana cedis to Ghanaian coffers because he was unable to explain to SRAJ what exactly it was that got those money into his account.
So tell us, is that why they've established the issue of abuse of office?
Right. And so, like I was saying earlier, as PPA boss, there were contracts that will come to him for approval. What he did was to use his office to sell those contracts. And so, in connivance with, of course, other state actors, what they would do will be to use their office. And he was CEO of PPA. And so he also had another company, TDL, and he was altering decisions so that those decisions will favor his company. And so they sell these contracts to his company so that the company will reap those benefits, which will indirectly go into his pocket. And so this acts of the PPA boss, which of course, bordering on conflicts of interest by he himself sitting on the tender committees and other committees of the Public Procurement Authority and agreeing to give out contracts to companies that he owned without declaring them. SRAJ found this to be abuse of office, among others.
Kweku, tonight we're also learning about issues relating to the declaration of assets. It appears that Mr. ABAJ has not been compliant.
Right. So as head of PPA, he ought to have declared his office at the time of entering office. But not only him, his board chairman, Douglas Boatin, all failed to declare their assets and liabilities to the Auditor General as provided by Chapter 24 of the 1992 Constitution, and actually the act that establishes Public Procurement Authority itself. And so this was also a significant finding. And anti-corruption crusaders have been making the point that people who get into public office must declare their wealth, must also declare their liabilities, and so that when they get out of office, it's actually possible to compare what exactly they have been making in office and to judge whether or not they were able to make that amount or the resources they've been able to amass within that reasonable space that they have been in office. And so this Shraj report actually states that ABAJ, together with the board chairman of the Public Procurement Authority at the time, all failed to declare their assets and liabilities.
It appears that on the issue of Douglas, the report established issues of collusion. How about that as well? What's the explanation to that in the report?
Okay, so Douglas Boatin, as board chair, had a certain level of oversight over the activities of Public Procurement Authority. And if you read this report, it almost establishes that he was working together with the PPA boss to do some of the things that have been impugned that our investigation exposed. And so, as board chairman, instead of sitting on some of these committees and making sure that the right things are done, he did not. He colluded with the PPA boss to ensure that some of these funds, some of these contracts are sold to some of the companies that were owned by Mr. ABAJ.
I guess a clear case of dereliction of duty there. But fortunately, we've been joined by Mary Awalana Ada, who's Programs Manager of the Ghana Integrity Initiative. Thank you for joining us. We understand that GII is making a fresh demand now after the release of this report for criminal aspects of this case to be fast-tracked, first of all, by the Office of the Special Prosecutor and YOCO. Why are you making these demands?
Thank you very much, and good evening to your cherished viewers. Our ask included that if it is established that the former CEO of the Public Procurement Authority was in breach of the law, then for that matter, then there must be the process to initiate some sanctioning or investigation and sanctioning for that issue. And remember that this is not a new request. We are just reiterating the fact that these are processes that have been ongoing. The president in his petition, and when he referred the petition to Shraj, also referred the criminal aspects of the investigation when it comes to corruption and abuse of power to the Office of the Special Prosecutor. And then YOCO also took up part of it, particularly referencing the issues around unexplained wealth. And so it's only right that the Ghana Integrity Initiative would want to know the status of the investigations on the criminal issues of this matter when it comes to the OSP and also the YOCO. These are fundamental issues we need to bring clarity to. Now, Shraj has been very consistent with the first and also the second reports. If you remember, on the issue of conflict of interest, that was basically the issues the presidency referred to Shraj on. And we as well, in our acts, we demanded 8 different requests to Shraj. And if you look at the findings that have come out, some are consistent with the findings of the first report, which was to the presidency. But in our case, we were very emphatic on the issue of the board, particularly when it comes to their declaration of assets and the CEO. We also demanded that the issues around unexplained wealth be looked into, because in the first instance, we heard that some amounts had gone into his account from the period he took office to when he exited. And so it was only right that the agencies of state declare if these were acquired legally or not. And we are very happy that Shraj has been very concrete in this. And it is based on this finding that the 10-year suspension from public office was put in place, or that decision was taken. And it's supposed to be running concurrently with the decision that was taken for him to not be permitted to occupy public office for 5 years on the issue of conflict of interest.
I've been reading your statement, trying to understand the input of the case you're making at the concluding parts. It appears that ABAJ is not the only one you're concerned about as GII. In fact, you want other public officials to be checked. Do you suspect that there are similar cases deep-seated in the public sector?
It is a known fact that we have issues and allegations of corruption coming up on an ongoing basis. And so this is only the platform based on which we are then making our request that whatever the case, we need to be more vigilant. We need to do a lot more as civil society, as investigative journalists, and also as a people, individuals. We need to ensure that we are reporting issues of corruption because our laws, as they are set out, function. And SHRAG has shown that example, not once, not twice. And so it is for us all as a people to ensure that our institutions of state are working. And that is why we make the call that whatever has been decided by SHRAG or the decisions by SHRAG should be, as a matter of agency, seen to be enforced so that other agencies of state begin to do as much. And then this would not only serve as a deterrent, but also promote the investigative powers and also the prosecutorial and sanctioning powers of our other bodies. It would only be a motivator for them to do more. And it will also serve as a motivator to encourage citizens who see wrongdoing to go forward to report. It is only right that we begin to see a lot more of this happening. Right. And that is why we make that call, that everybody in Ghana should be playing their key roles to ensure that our legal regime is operating and functioning, our institutions are doing their work without fear or favor. And you realize that, let me come again.
Right. Go ahead.
Let me come again to one of the decisions that SHRAG took. Perhaps it wasn't what we wanted, but then it's brought clarity to the issue of who declares his assets. Per the Constitution, it says public officers should declare their assets. Public officers within a certain rank. Per the Act 550, it also spells out the same. We have 3 months for the Constitution. The Act talks about 6 months. Who to declare under contention, and SHRAG has brought clarity to that. I'm
glad that you're bringing that, and I'm glad that you're bringing that point up. Let me just take your thoughts on it. There are concerns that the problem has got to do with the aspect of transparency, the fact that we're not making the declaration of assets transparent, and that's why we seem to be having this kind of challenge. What's the call of GII really on a possible amendment of this law?
I believe we have made this call severally, and currently there is an ongoing process of a review, and the Office of the Attorney General is currently putting in place the bill again. The issues around declaration is not in doubt because it says that when a public officer takes office, he should declare his office. Our contention over the years has been with the fact that declarations are not public. There is no verification of same until there is an issue where the competent authority, that is SHRAG, is allowed, and others like the FIC can be allowed to then go for the declared assets which are sealed and kept in the protection of the Auditor General's office to see what is there. We have a legal regime that is limiting. And so in the revisions or in the bill that is currently being worked again, it started in 2013. Somehow it didn't get to pass. Now it's called the Conduct of Public Officers Bill, and it encapsulates a lot of different things. It deals with the issue around conflict of interest. It expands the issues around unexplained wealth as well. And then the issues around asset declaration is also captured. Even though we are not getting perhaps verification, but it expands the scope a little bit. So with the current scheme of things, we have some leeway where SHRAG can go for the issues, but then there must be an issue, and that is not best practice. So if you do a review of our legislation against what exists as best practice, we fall short because there is no verification there's no publication, and there's also no monitoring. Remember, it's not just about assets, it's also about the liabilities of the person.
Right.
And so when there is a contention, we should be able to declare same.
Mariada, I'm grateful that you've been able to spend some time with us here on Joy News Prime.